the type of film that I feel maybe you were kind of holding on to for a while till it was ready to be done. Is that the case?
Yes, in many ways. It's a very complicated history this movie has. I mean, I conceived it in 2012, worked on the script 13, 14, and then suddenly The Autopsy of Jane Doe comes along, and it's actually halfway the same producers. And I was like, and I was able to talk my way into that movie. And then suddenly I'm shooting that, and we're making that, and 2015, 16 goes. And then I come back to Mortal, which was then financed, fully funded, just waiting to be made. And we shoot it in 2017. And then in the fall of 2017, when I'm in editing it, I get this script with Guillermo del Toro's name on it. Do I want to direct this movie? And I'm like, how stupid would I have to be to say no to that? So then we're able to figure out a way for post and special effects to keep working while I'm gone doing Scary Stories, and then I finished this one afterwards.
What is it about these classic legends and mythos that make it such great fodder for film? Is it because there's a lot to dig into, or you get to have your own spin on them?
Yeah, I mean it's both. I mean there is a lot of stuff there. It's so many elements that are very cinematic, and the characters are really grandiose and amazing and have personality, and then you have the modernization of that is a lot of fun. I mean, obviously, the big elephant in the room is Marvel, and they make wonderful, brilliant takes on the Thor mythology. But I was in a way, by definition, forced to do something else because we have this little fraction of their budget. So I wanted to make an intimate, grounded little movie set in a very rural place, far away from everything, and a very personal story, and just do the opposite. Yeah.
Well, you talk about fraction of the budget, and you talk about smaller story, but for instance, when I get a link and I have to watch something at home, I almost always refuse to try and watch it on the phone because I want to see it on a larger scale. This time I was kind of forced to watch it on my phone, but it still looked so grandiose and brilliant. So, kind of how much power does it take to kind of get that across in, all forms?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I'm glad that it comes across even on a phone screen, but it's, no, I mean, it's, how is it just the power of storytelling that regardless of how you do things will come through, whether you're watching the next Bond movie on your phone or a TV show or a little YouTube video, or if the story is engaging, it doesn't matter, it seems.
I mean, the cinematography, though, was brilliant. I mean, it looked so crisp and gorgeous.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, I mean, the DOP I keep working with, he's amazing at creating beautiful imagery.
What about Nat? Was he kind of somebody you had to search for, or was he kind of somebody you kind of aimed in right from the beginning?
No, he's, with Hollywood, you kind of have a tendency to look for, you look for a age bracket, and then you look for who's a star, who's up and coming, and who can, who has that personality that we need for this role. And Nat Wolff's name came up very, very early. And I Skyped with him, and I really saw that he could bring both this boyish charm that I'd seen before with a darkness that I hadn't seen, that he's done more of since, I think. But that kind of, that blend really worked so well for this character, because you have to sympathize and empathize with him, but you also have to fear him, and you also have to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders. You also have to feel the guilt he's carrying around in a way.
You had mentioned, the idea that this mythology has now taken course through a big pop culture kind of studio, and I'm wondering where that both may harm and support you, for people knowing a little bit more about the story ahead of time, to also them having an idea that they're now kind of taken away from.
Yeah, I think it's, without the Marvel movies, I don't even know if this movie would be possible to make. Because, as you say, it's a yin and yang kind of thing. You have to have the Marvel. for this movie to make any sense, you've had to experience the proper version, if you will, the big scale blonde, Thor you expect. So I can only hope that there is an audience out there who will embrace the fact that we try to do something different, try to step a little bit off the path that has been created by Marvel. So, yeah.
Did any of that then come into play when you had to think about iconic imagery? I mean, obviously you're not going to go for the same thing, but you have to think about now going even further away from it?
I think that works out almost naturally, that it's... I believe that you should not have too much mythology in a movie, because then you just get, seep down into explaining, and the audience isn't able to follow a lot of it. And I'm not. When I'm watching movies, I get very quickly bored with a lot of exposition about some mythology that doesn't really affect the presence of the characters here and now.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to keep it to a minimalist level, with just the basic elements that you kind of know, and a little bit more maybe to fill it out.
When I was watching it, and it was coming up to the final part where they bring up religion, they bring up the idea of deities, I started to wonder to myself, I'm going to take away what I want from any movie. It doesn't make a difference if that may be what you originally intended. But I started to kind of balance the difference between the idea of understanding that deities are fallible, to also the idea of, just like anybody's life, it depends on our upbringing or what we experience that forms us. And I'm wondering what was more of the guide you wanted to walk along for that.
No, I wanted to talk, as the title suggests, I wanted to talk about being human, and a person who is actually a god and a human at the same time, and how both he deals with it, and how the world around deals with it, and how we perceive a person like that, on different perspectives on it, from the sheriff who's like casually Christian, who's to atheists, to people who are cultists, to the more grander point of view that Korra has, and to eventually actually proving that the mythology is real, and how do you actually deal with that on a physical level. Like the movie ends with heavy drama, a lot of drama around that.
And finally, just to wrap things up, you have now been the person who has been spearheaded the Scary Stories films. You're going to eventually be doing Stephen King's Long Walk. These are properties that for a long time have been held so sacred and took their time to get to the screen. I'm wondering how it feels to be that person that gets to bring it to the people.
It's quite unbelievable to be. I'm just honored and pinch myself every few minutes when I have, because it's to be able to direct and adapt a Stephen King novel or Scary Stories. That means so much to the American audience, to the American public who grew up with these books, and the impact it had on so many people. It's exhilarating in many ways, more than fear-inducing. It's exhilarating because when you make something, you want it to mean something to somebody else. Like movies meant something to you when you grew up, and to be able to impact people with something they care about is a privilege that I do not take lightly. But yeah, no, it's to have my name mentioned next to Stephen King's in seeing it in articles is like, am I living in an alternate reality? Yeah.
Well, that Dave, I still tell people the golden idea of storytelling in the modern times is Troll Hunter. The way you told the story there, brilliant. Always will tell people that.
Thank you. That's wonderful to hear. That's great.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
You too.